Welcome, Sami. Thanks very much for making the time for today's Listen.Better podcast. Welcome. Which city do we find you in today?
I'm actually just north of San Francisco, Northern California.
Okay, great stuff. Well, it's probably a little sunnier than here in rainy Brighton.
Usually is.
So, founder and CEO of Clarity, I'm really interested to find out about your leadership style, how you inspire your team, and what sort of initiatives you've been involved in over the last year. We know Clarity is a hugely successful agency. Congratulations on all that you've achieved to date. What particularly piqued my interest, and we'll come on to it, is your initiatives around equality, diversity, and inclusion, the EDI initiative. But before we get on to that, can you possibly sum up the last year in just one sentence? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, it's well, I think it's obviously been uniquely challenging, but honestly, I reflect on it with a huge amount of pride in terms of how we responded to really difficult circumstances. So yeah, very challenging, but all in all, a good year for us.
Great stuff. Okay. So coming on to the EDI, tell me about this initiative. I saw a great piece on your website about it, which is what piqued my interest in getting in touch. So can you outline the basics?
Sure. Around June last year, when the Black Lives Matter movement kicked off here in the US, it was really a big wake-up call for me personally. I think as a business, as we've kind of grown up over the years, we've always tried to build an inclusive and ethical company. But it was really more of a kind of informal understanding that was the case rather than an intentional strategic decision on, from a leadership perspective. But the Black Lives Matter movement kind of coincided with a moment in time in the business where we'd reached a level of maturity and a level of scale, and we had a certain level of resources that, for me, kind of made me feel like just being a sort of passive participant in this conversation wasn't sufficient, and we had a real responsibility to do whatever we could to make a difference to this conversation. So it catalyzed a whole range of initiatives for us. We established a task force with representatives from every office, canvassed the opinion of our people, and collated a whole bunch of ideas for how we might make a meaningful, positive change to this situation. And the mandate for me was, we don't just need to hit a kind of, industry standard benchmark. We want to set a new standard for how agencies should think about equality and inclusion and diversity in the workplace. So since then, we've done a bunch of things, some big, some small. I think it's going to take small steps and giant leaps, but amongst other things, we committed $1 million in pro bono services to diverse businesses. We joined an amazing new organization called the Diversity Marketing Consortium, which is a group of agencies that are delivering an additional $3 million in services to women and BIPOC-led organizations. And as a consequence of that, we are engaged with 2 clients already that we're supporting on a pro bono basis, and that's proven to be really energizing for the whole team. Other things we've done, we've introduced blind recruitment, which I think is something in retrospect we should have done much sooner.
Tell me about how that works then. What are the baby steps other leaders could be taking to introduce that?
I mean, it takes a little bit of thinking through, but once it's set up, it kind of makes a huge difference in helping eliminate any unconscious bias. So removing names, removing photos, removing any sort of indicators of identity in the application process. And I don't know if it's a direct consequence of having established that, but the makeup of our team that identifies as BIPOC has increased pretty significantly in the last 6 months. And we have been hiring, unlike a lot of agencies, unfortunately, over the last year. So yeah, there's a bunch of other things as well. We've, for example, encouraging every member of our team to take a couple of days off every year to volunteer for any organisation connected to promoting EDI. We've updated everything from training to salary bands and staff policies and contracts to ensure that the infrastructure of the business is in place to really promote diversity. So yeah, there's lots that's happened in the last 9 months, but there's still a huge amount of work to do.
And how far will you take that in terms of the kind of clients you'll work with? Are you going to hold them accountable for their EDI record and approach?
Absolutely. And we've actually, one of the things we did in the last few months is put clauses into our client contracts that make our policy really clear. And actually, in one situation, we took great pleasure in firing a client that didn't meet our standards with respect to EDI. So we're very alive to that, and we'll be absolutely decisive in those situations.
Fantastic. And how's that received when you're in new business discussions with clients? Are they amenable to
It's
that?
been received really positively. I think that, this is an issue that thankfully most people in the business world are alive to and feel a sense of responsibility for. So I think hopefully, clients will grow to expect this kind of conversation with their agencies. So there's been nothing but positive feedback in response to it so far.
And you mentioned talking about getting the team involved, so looking for their ideas, so to source innovation creative. Any particular ideas have surprised you, or perhaps from newer members of staff, younger generation, what their ideas might be?
I think that's really surprised me. I think, the younger generation is rightly kind of angry that the industry and society at large has such a long way to go on these issues. And so we're finding, the whole staff, but particularly that younger generation, to be extremely engaged in this discussion. And I'm part of that EDI task force, and it's, cheering to see the level of passion and engagement on this issue. But no, I wouldn't say there have been any kind of surprising suggestions. I think, some of the things we should have been doing already, and I take responsibility for that. But I think some of the bigger initiatives are pretty meaningful for us from a cost and resource perspective. So I'm proud that we're able to support them.
Yeah. And what have been any of the blocks or challenges that you've faced? Can you reveal what's been the most difficult thing about launching the initiative and following through on it?
Not really blocks, but we're still a small agency and a small business, and we have limited resources. So we've had to figure out ways to carve out real time that would otherwise be devoted to the general day-to-day running of the business. And we're growing rapidly, so capacity is always an issue. But from the very top and the whole of the global leadership team, we've put a lot of the agency's weight behind this, and have insisted, frankly, that this takes priority over other things. So this isn't a kind of something in which we're paying lip service to the notion of making progress on this. It's carving out real resources, real time, that's measured and tracked, and it runs like any other account. So yeah, I suppose there's been a little bit of friction associated with getting that set up and started, but now we're fully on board with it.
Yeah, the dreaded resource planner, and
yeah.
So in this whole process, what would you say you've learned about yourself and your approach to launching something so ambitious and trying to bring that team on the journey with you? Could you reveal a little bit about how that's impacted?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing, whether it's on a purely personal level, is I suppose, like a lot of people, I felt like just because I'm not racist. I'm confident that I'm not racist. That in itself was a kind of sufficient position to take. But actually, I think what I learned, through speaking with lots of people and reading a lot about the Black Lives Matter movement, is that that's not enough. And actually, we need to be actively anti-racist. We can't just kind of passively sit back and wait for change. There's just too much work to do. So I think this is a situation that demands proactivity and real energy. And, that's been a big learning for me personally. And hopefully we're reflecting that in the business as well.
Yeah. Apologies for my cat who keeps wandering backwards and forwards.
That's okay. Very welcome. You might get a 3-year-old at some point soon. So
distracted by cat. Now, what I wanted to, obviously, can't let it go by. Here we are on the 10th of March, and we've got the Meghan Markle, Oprah Winfrey, and Harry interview. What is your view? You're stateside. We're in the UK, obviously, with the royal family trying to play it down. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of depressing. Is my kind of, emotional response to it. I think Piers Morgan has no right to be questioning whether or not somebody is, experiencing those feelings and thoughts, and whatever his perspective on Meghan Markle as a human being. I think that was unacceptable, and I couldn't see any way for him to continue in his role at Good Morning Britain. I think in the US, for what it's worth, and I'm sure there's a similar narrative in the UK, this has definitely been framed as a race issue. And, I think under the circumstances, that's an unavoidable conclusion to reach, unfortunately. So, but I think it's just indicative of, the fact that this is an issue that affects every strata of society. And, I think maybe for a period of time in the aftermath of the election of Barack Obama, people were sort of patting themselves on the back and thinking we lived in a post-racial society. Frankly, that couldn't be further from the truth. So, just further fuel for the fire to try and affect some positive change in this on this issue.
Work to do. So, what will good look like from Clarity's perspective? You launched the initiative a year ago. So if we were talking a year's time and you were looking back, what are going to be the milestones for you that, I don't know?
Sure. I mean, I think, obviously getting to a situation and a workplace and a world in which everybody, irrespective of their identity, has equal opportunity is kind of where we want to get to. But, I think, unfortunately, that's a distant dream because of the way society is structured, and that inequity is going to take a lot of time to dismantle. So I think for us, it's a question of, being committed to making progress every single day, even when this issue isn't, top of the agenda, even when it's not necessarily the most fashionable thing to be thinking about. We want to keep pushing and keep holding ourselves accountable, and every single year we'll set new goals and new targets and push harder. In terms of in a year's time, I think I'd like to think we'll continue to make progress in building a team that accurately reflects the society in which we serve and the clients which we serve. I hope that our team will have a growing sense of pride at the work that we're doing as an agency to change the industry. But I don't expect that we'll get to a place in a year's time where we have any sense of complacency on this. I think this is going to be something that's right at the top of the agenda for many years to come. So you won't hear us sort of patting ourselves on the back too happily in a year's time. I'm sure of that. Plenty of work to do.
Excellent. What would you say that other leaders could and should be thinking about if they haven't really taken steps yet on their EDI initiative, what could they be doing in the short term to start to make change?
I'm particularly interested in ways in which we can make the industry more appealing for people from a diverse background. I think it typically attracts a certain demographic, and I think we need to work harder to get people into the industry at the most junior levels. So we're throwing around some ideas for that currently, and hope to make some progress on that this year. But I think as an industry, there isn't the talent pool, frankly, that there needs to be for us to be truly representative of the societies that we operate in, and I think that's on us to change that. So I think that's a really major initiative that somehow the industry needs to get its head around and start making some progress on. So yeah, if anyone's watching and has any ideas, I'd really welcome them.
Excellent. Would that involve sort of grassroots level stuff in schools and looking at who's choosing which courses and why, and trying to inspire a diverse group? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of work to do on that. I think there's lots of work to do at sort of every level of the hierarchy, but I think at those most junior levels, there's a major need right now to figure that out. So yeah, we're going to work on some things with respect to that, and hopefully make some progress.
Great. Thank you very much, Sami. You've taken 20 minutes of your valuable time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. No, thanks so much for having me. It's an important issue, and I'm always keen to talk about it.
Good stuff. I'll check in with you in a year's time.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Annabel. Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Stay well.